Well, with the playing of that familiar theme song, it's time to go out to the other coast of the United States. And that's where we will find our good friend Michael Snyder, and he's ready to tell you all about the movies that you should and shouldn't see. Hello, Michael.
Hey, Alex, and I wish I had better news, but this is a real mixed bag this weekend in terms of new films. We kick off with the release of Dr. Sleep, the long-awaited movie version of the sequel to the horror classic The Shining, both based on novels written by Stephen King. If I'm not mistaken, King wasn't particularly enamored of director Stanley Kubrick's iconic 1980 adaptation of The Shining, despite its stellar reputation and ongoing influence on the horror genre. And now, 4 decades later, director-screenwriter Mike Flanagan has made a movie of Dr. Sleep. And I hear tell this new one has the Stephen King seal of approval, but maybe not the Michael Snyder seal of approval. In a nutshell, Dr. Sleep catches up to Danny Torrance, the psychic haunted son of the Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall characters in The Shining, 40 years after the trauma the kid experienced in the remote and thoroughly haunted Overlook Hotel. Played as a grown man by Ewan McGregor, who's actually quite good here. Danny has tried to leave his awful childhood experiences behind, struggling through the aftermath and tamping down his extraordinary extrasensory abilities, a questionable gift from beyond called The Shining, by living under the radar and drinking himself into oblivion. But a young person with a shine that may outstrip Danny's reaches out to him at the same time that a twisted Manson-esque family of near-immortal psychic vampires is finding gifted kids with kind of a bit of the shine and draining them of their mental powers and life force for nourishment. The leader of this tribe of hipster ghouls is a sexy matriarch played by Rebecca Ferguson of the recent installments of the Mission Impossible franchise, and she is pretty damn chilling. All in all, I enjoyed watching Dr. Sleep, which, by the way, is the nickname Danny receives during his time at a temp job soothing terminal patients at a hospice as they expire. But there's a lot of fan service and flashbacks here, settings and payoffs that directly relate to Kubrick's The Shining, for better or worse. A lot of it is beautifully rendered, but if you haven't seen that first movie, I'd almost say don't bother with this. And if you have seen The Shining, this sadly will suffer by comparison and has more than a few questionable plot points and holes in logic. Still, as horror movies go, this is well made and fun to watch. It's just a lot less consequential than it should be. Okay, let's move along to something maybe not in my wheelhouse, but, you know, I will watch a World War II action movie, and if it's a good one, I'm totally on board. And as expansive movies about significant World War II action, Midway is one. The special effects are spectacular and put you right in the middle of one of the most important clashes in the Pacific theater, the Battle of Midway between the Japanese Navy and the American fleet, the latter still reeling from the sneak attack on Pearl Harbor by the former. This is directed by Roland Independence Day Emmerich. I was skeptical to begin with. And the rest of the movie is pretty pedestrian stuff, with cliched dialogue and thin characterizations of the sailors, pilots, and officers on both sides. You do get good and renowned actors, as, for instance, decorated historical figures on the U.S. side, and they include Woody Harrelson in a white toupee and spiffy uniform as Admiral Chester Nimitz, Dennis Quaid as Admiral William Bull Halsey, Patrick Wilson as canny intelligence officer Edwin Layton, the guy who foresaw Pearl Harbor but failed to convince any of his superior officers of the threat, and Aaron Eckhart as heroic pilot Jimmy Doolittle, and that was the 30 Seconds Over Tokyo guy. And the screenplay, such as it is, does take pains to depict the Japanese perspective. But the likes of Ed Skrein, Luke Evans, and Nick Jonas as the young men fighting for the U.S. in the air or on the water are depicted more like action figures than full-blooded military men, even if they get the most up-close time on screen. Lovable Mandy Moore is here as the wife of screen's daredevil pilot Dick Best, who was another real veteran of World War II, but she can't do much with what she's given. And this is a 2-hour tour of duty that begins to wear a bit, even with Midway's great visuals. A comparison with Christopher Nolan's spectacular and comparatively complex Dunkirk movie show the flaws of Midway, which is interesting on the historical side and deficient on drama. Yeah, deficiency. It's a bummer when it hits your movie, and when it's a movie you're excited about. I mean, I had high hopes for Last Christmas, a shot at a seasonal romantic comedy set in modern-day London. Alas, the shot misfires, despite seeming to have a few assets. It was co-written by Emma Thompson, for instance, who also appears in the film, and it stars Emilia Clarke, the mother of dragons from Game of Thrones, herself, as an adorable but self-defeating young woman, a wannabe actress-singer whose life is crap, despite the presumed charm of working in a festive Christmas decoration shop on a lively London street as December 25th approaches. And the owner of the shop, hey, played by Michelle Yeoh, who you may know from the recent Star Trek Discovery show, but is a terrific Chinese action figure actress type, and she brings a measure of charm here. Henry Golding of Crazy Rich Asians plays a mystery man who seems to be trying to woo Emma Thompson's character, Kate, regardless of her screwed-up life and attitude, and she has a secret or two of her own. The problems in the movie, which makes liberal use of the music of George Michael and Andrew Ridgeley of Wham, including the title song. The problems include a lack of chemistry between Clarke and Golding, Clarke's inability to make her waifish character truly likable or to really bring the funny, and the script itself, which mistakes corn for genuine sentiment and actually is rather stiff or heavy-handed on the comedy front. I mean, people like ham at Christmas, but this is way too hammy. Clarke's character, Kate, is part of an immigrant family from Eastern Europe. She's at odds with her mother and sister. There's elements of the fear of Brexit and immigrants. All that looms large in the subtext, as does the plight of a bunch of people at a homeless shelter. In a telling reference to a genuinely successful Christmas-themed comedy, Blackadder's Christmas Carol is on a TV set at one point, and that's a bad comparison. And also a bad comparison is one to Love Actually, written and directed by Blackadder co-creator Richard Curtis, and that is a much better Christmas rom-com than Last Christmas, with more genuine rom and way more calm and a better song, All I Want for Christmas Is You. Both movies share big, purportedly heartwarming production numbers built around their respective Christmas classics, but the one in Love Actually feels like a gift, while the one in Last Christmas feels like a ploy. Finally, I want to talk briefly about Honey Boy, which is an autobiographical script by, of all people, Shia LaBeouf. And it's frank and revealing and sad. It's an account of a child actor's life in Hollywood during the latter part of the 20th century. It's based on LaBeouf's appearance as a kid in the cast of the Disney Channel sitcom Even Stevens. And man, this is a heartbreaker. LaBeouf plays the character that's based on his father, which is a pivotal role, and the kid's dad is a wayward kind of bastard. I just have to tell you, it was quite good, emotionally moving. Alma Harrell directed this thing. It also features a terrific performance by Lucas Hedges as the young kid, who I guess is stand-in for LaBeouf. And just in general, I was blown away by Honey Boy. Great performance by LaBeouf. Very, very potent movie. That's about it. What do you got in movies or TV, buddy?
Well, I just suggest Apple Plus. It's a pretty good watch. A lot of the shows they've got there. The morning show I thought was terrific, and For All Mankind is a very interesting premise done by Ronald D. Moore, who, as you know, did Star Trek Deep Space Nine and a lot of other major shows. I think he was also involved in Battlestar Galactica, the most recent version of that. And it's really Apple Plus has started out, I think, on a pretty good footing. So, you know,
I understand that For All Mankind basically is an alternative history of the space race. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
And it works.
It works. Oh, it works. It definitely works. You have to watch a couple episodes before you realize where it's going, but it definitely works. Anyway, there's our theme. Tell them where to find you, Michael.
I'm on Twitter at Culture Blaster and on Facebook at Michael Snyder's Culture Blast page and here on GABNet, buddy.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. And you can also find them on GABNet.net in our on-demand section. And you can hear them here 24/7 as the GABNet network continues.